Hello, music listeners, underground enthusiasts, and people who... It's time for another weekly tracks review where I round up tracks that have come out throughout the week and we talk about them. You know the drill, you know how it goes. And, let's get started. Starting off the list, we have Wake Up, Choose Violence from Savage Gasp and Do Not Resurrect. And since re-entering the world of becoming an independent artist, Savage Gasp has been slowly picking up the pace and dropping some fun and high-quality tracks that I have really enjoyed. And since I started listening to Savage Gasp back in 2018, his recognizable brand of soft, internet reference-fueled rap is a unique style that I loved back then and have enjoyed watching it become refined over the years. Because even on his darker trap-sounding work, and sort of lyrically transgressive work as well, his earnest personality still leaks through ever so slightly in between the deep rasp and rumbling 808s. And on Wake Up, Choose Violence, he teams up with Do Not Resurrect, another artist whose work I have consistently loved over the years, to deliver a quasi-apathetic and hard-hitting dark trap anthem full of entertaining bars and, as the name suggests, violence. Gasp's first verse blends his soft cadence that is typically reserved for his other trademark sound with the occasional switch to a more raspy delivery, and his lyrics are intelligently written to provide a bit of a tongue-in-cheek performance with a mix of flexes, threats, and references. And it's a really entertaining verse. I think that the relaxed and casual delivery is a good choice for the ambient and spacey keys in the beat, and despite a lot of apparent thought being put into the verses, it feels effortless, and the confidence lies within that seeming lack of effort. It's a really fun verse. And when Rez comes in, he does what he does best. His deep timbre rattles off horrorcore imagery, tight and solid flows, and intense and resonant ad-libs. His verse is kind of short-lived, but it is condensed and packed with impressive rhymes and interesting flows. I'm particularly a fan of the "Ain't a Motherfucker More Hated, I'ma Have to See You Later, Spray the Pavement Like It's Tie-Dye" flow. It is intense and pretty seamless. Overall, this is a collaboration that I'm really happy to see. Both of these artists have been a favorite of mine for a long time, and watching their respective worlds collide has resulted in one of my favorite collabs of the year. And then after a well-deserved yet uncharacteristic break, coming off the high of Forget Me Not Volume 1, sewerperson has given us the first single since the album, in the form of the Jabari and Who Is Nate produced Muck, which is a pleasant fusion of a lot of sewerperson's trademark sounds. The Jabari and Nate production feels reminiscent of Comet, but also has qualities of songs like Swain's outro and Slow-Fi interlude from A Nightmare. The production from Jabari and Nate is exactly what you would expect from them: punctual and booming 808s, sharp cutting snares, and melodies that are almost shadows darkly sliding in the background hidden behind the other components of the track. And there is a defined clarity in sewerperson's vocals beyond the recognizable high-pass mixes that he typically employs. The vocal enunciation and clear mix lets the song deeply breathe with a high amount of clarity, and this clarity rests nicely on top of the darker production. Everything is clearly defined and noticeable. And Sewer's writing on this is biting and honest, carried along by tight flows and pretty satisfying rhyme schemes. The "she gon' burn me for my bread and pop out quick like she was toast" line is frustratingly clever. And despite some of the themes in the lyrics reflecting the ideas of being used and being burnt out, in the delivery there is a consistent vocal confidence that sewerperson displays with ease. In plenty of his tracks, this has been the dynamic, some flexing, some detriment, and it is a dynamic that works well because at the end of the day, it avoids black and white thinking to depict a realistic gray. And then we have Drugs from sydcxx, still on the high of fantasy. For sydcxx's next creative endeavor, I sort of expected her to continue down this newfound path of poppy indie rock, but Drugs is anything but that. It is an ambient and ghostly, almost anti-pop song about substance abuse, public perception versus somebody who really is, and related themes. The persistent reversed percussion paired with the floating ambient keys that ride up and down the beat produce an eerie and somewhat anxiety-inducing instrumental, which is appropriate given I believe that it pretty adequately reflects the song thematically. And Syd's vocals that deliver the short two verses of this song in just over a minute and 20 seconds are soft and reserved, with a rather somber and poignant message wrapped up in the euphonic notes. And this song sort of dives into the concept of how self-reflected grievances are present in music, because the lyrics on this track are vulnerable and in a way kind of exposing, talking about drug use and emotional state, whether as a metaphor or objectively, for most context is not meant to paint the artist in an incredibly positive light. So Drugs, in its short runtime, feels honest, and beyond the sonically pleasing vocals and beat, the meaning within the lyrics is substantial, and I think that it is delivered in a beautiful way. And then we have Widow Winslow with On the Wire. Don't be fooled by its dark ambience and downtrodden lyricism. On the Wire is a pop song, through and through. The deep bass and incredibly roomy claps paired with the distant keys create a wide and looming atmosphere, stretching out like everything was recorded in a cave. And Widow's intimate and personal vocals are full of depth, with the harmonies that make appearances throughout the song layering really well, further contributing to and building up such a whirling and deep atmosphere. And I really like the writing on this. It presents this narrative of betrayal but also connection, with this desire to be with somebody despite so many indicators showing that toxicity and pain will more than likely be the result of pursuing said relationship. It is a song that I think has a wide scope of appeal, and it is impressively made on all fronts. And then we have Corefish with Fruitless. Over the past month or two, Corefish has very quickly become one of my favorite current artists, boasting a ridiculous amount of talent that bleeds through in his punchy and poppy songs. Run and SOS immediately hooked me on the first listen, so needless to say, I was pretty happy to see a new release in the form of Fruitless, which takes a bit of a pleasant turn in terms of what I have heard from Corefish so far. Instead of the insistently clean vocals with a slick production, on Fruitless, Corefish dives headfirst into fuzz rock. The saturated and hazy guitar works really well with the dusty and overbearingly punchy percussion, which cuts through every aspect of the production to dominate the song. It is overwhelming in the best way. And Corefish's vocals follow this dynamic, leaving behind clarity and cleanliness to make way for an equally distorted and muddy vocal mix that blends right into the environment. But the clarity is still there underneath the mix, as Corefish's notes are solid and the smooth timbre of his voice is immediately recognizable. So I do appreciate that there is a balance within the distorted environment of this track, and the vocal performance on this is great. It is authentic and powerful with impressive range in the notes delivered. The high-pitched vocals toward the end that shout out as the percussion builds in intensity is a crazy sound that I cannot get enough of. I'm happy to say that Corefish has got another banger to flex in his discography. So just to get my biases, out of the way, into the open, just, being honest with you all, because, I don't want to be deceptive. So to get this out of the way, this was the track that I was most excited for this week, to talk about and just listen to, because this is the first Lando drop since her debut album, Out of My Mind, in April of 2022. And after listening to and loving Lando's music for years, Out of My Mind's release not only solidified my enjoyment of Lando's music, but also became one of my favorite underground projects of all time. Like we're talking top 5. And after over a year, my head sees Lando once again in full control of the soundscapes that she crafts, with beautiful sound design, engaging environments, and a masterfully crafted structure. These sliding and bright synth melodies feel otherworldly, and the cowbell-sounding percussion lead feels contrastingly DIY. So many melodies and counter-melodies and little noises and beeps and quirks whirl in and out of the sound, some working in tandem with Lando's vocals, sometimes even directly mirroring the vocal melodies, and some acting as sweet and soft counter melodies to sort of contrasting work against. Lando's music feels like if you took an organic indie folk song and ran it through a digitized chiptune filter over and over and over until you got the most concentrated form of that song. Everything is digital, but it feels so natural. And Lando's soft and occasionally reserved vocals describe a song, being stuck in her head, refusing to leave to a point where it feels like genuine insanity. And the use of natural vocals, glitched stutters, and format shifting, altering her voice to get piercingly high or to a dampened low point, help create such an engaging and interactive sound. And Lando's use of turning vocals into something more akin to instruments is just another element that plays into the beautifully layered atmosphere. I'm very happy with this song. We got a new Yoku track with I Don't Know How to Love. Similar to Yoku's last track, Does It Even Matter, I Don't Know How to Love has this warm and welcoming feel to it in its production. It almost feels like it's ripped straight from a fantasy world. The gentle guitar and what I think is flute reinforce this. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like this song is like, I don't know, like from like Zelda or like shit, even like a RuneScape. And with this jovial production, Yoku has some characteristic relaxed vocals, at some points almost slurring together due to how casual the delivery is. The hook is a soft depiction of romantic uncertainty, and the verses pick up the pace to showcase some fun flows and pretty solid singing. Despite its subject matter, the song is incredibly feel-good. I don't know how that works. It's just it's just how I took it, how I'm interpreting it. And then we have lilsaku with Eclipse. So on this track, Saku has continued the trend of writing songs that borrow concepts and narratives from manga and anime, and it has been a creative endeavor that I've really enjoyed recently. Her inspiration this time is the manga Berserk, specifically the infamous part of the story with this little eclipse, this eclipse thing. And then, now I won't spoil the manga for the uninitiated, for those who haven't read, but this is a particularly, how do I put it? A particularly fucked up part. And what I enjoy so much about this track, along with her song Scout as well, is that there is an interesting line being walked when somebody makes a song of this nature. I primarily see it in nerdcore, but sometimes it does overlap with other genres, in this case being an indie rock hyperpop fusion. And that line being walked is when one makes a song inspired by a concept or narrative from a work of fiction. There runs the risk of writing a song so deeply inspired by the IP that the lyrics somewhat alienate an audience who hasn't read or watched the media being sang about. But I'm happy to say that Saku pretty much avoids this, and that's what I like so much about the writing on the track. You can enjoy the lyrics whether or not you've read Berserk, and if you haven't, then the lyrics are applicable to real-life metaphors and emotions, and for those who have read it, get to have fun pointing out the references and saying, hey, I got that, hey, I understood that reference. And apart from the writing, Saku delivers a crazy catchy hook on top of an intense and demanding synth 808 combination. If you're familiar with hyperpop at all, you will know what I'm talking about. And the verses boast some nice steady vocals mirroring emotions from the narrative that is being sang about. All in all, pretty good concept with pretty impressive execution. And to close things out, we have blackwinterwells with Quiet. I have really been enjoying Wells' recent output a lot. Songs like Sweet Dreams and Tehran became instant favorites of mine, and on Quiet, Wells discusses their thoughts on the recent output of tracks, as well as addressing and explaining current emotional states, and other related topics. The straightforward, tired delivery is full of emotion and really reflects the impact of what's being said, talking about Wells' struggle to make music that they deem widely appealing, cutting off relationships in perpetuity, and grievances with how a passion has turned into a paycheck, struggling to find that balance between creative drive and the need to be financially stable. It is an honest and vulnerable song that I think screams out a message of desolate feelings that many people will be able to relate to. And that feeling of missing your lowest point, wanting to go back to the familiarity of it, I think is probably deeply relatable, especially for a lot of people. The production side of things is really great, with the steady progression of synth chords, and Wells' rambled, staggered delivery helps present a conversational tone that I think works really well to the song's advantage. Just listening to it a few times, I'm sure it probably wasn't an easy track to make regarding the emotional toll it probably took, but nonetheless, it's really well made and deeply personal. So yeah, that is how I feel about these tracks. To this side of my head, you have some honorable mentions, some songs that I thought were worth listening to, that I liked, that I couldn't quite fit into this list. They're no less quality, I just didn't have as much to say as I did in these songs. You know how it is. Catch me in the next video where I change the green square to a different color and pretend that it was always just that new color. Bye.